Hey, court is in session.
Jim Brescia went on trial first. Scott Foxworth would be tried separately. Prosecutors say Brescia had hired Foxworth to kill Ed Schiller. And the motive? With Schiller out of the way, Brescia might get his wife back.
James Brescia refused to accept that his marriage to Stacy Brescia was over. And he refused to accept that those problems had nothing to do with Edward Schiller.
But would jurors buy the rest of the case from Middlesex County Prosecutor Adrian Lynch? It would hang on the testimony of two women in Brescia's life, his co-worker Nancy Campbell and his ex-wife Stacy.
So help me God.
On the witness stand, Stacy would have to confront the man she says brought so much grief to her life. As she testified, Brescia looked on with a poker face.
In 2005, was there a particular reason that you decided to go forward with the divorce?
I just couldn't do it anymore. I felt dead inside.
Stacy said she had wanted a divorce even before she and Ed reconnected, but that once she started seeing Ed, Jim Brescia became obsessed with that new relationship, even having them followed by a private eye. And finally, Stacy said, the obsession morphed into a threat.
I remember him saying, if we ended up together, it wouldn't be good for his health. And I said, even if you think of doing something silly or stupid, think of your kids.
Then, during the Christmas holidays, Stacy said she made a mistake that she would live to regret.
Now, during the course of the holidays, what, if anything, did Mr. Brescia do or stay? Where did he stay?
He ended up staying at my house for a while.
It is still hard for Stacy to explain.
He played me again by telling me, he wasn't going to go anywhere for Christmas, guilting me out, and the kids kind of wanted him around.
Clearly the message Jim got from that was that maybe things can still work out.
But I never once said that I wasn't going to go through with the divorce. I'm ashamed of that because I cheated on Ed. I did not love Jim.
Even though you were married to Jim?
I did not want to be with him. I don't expect anybody to understand what I can't understand, but I love Ed.
And Stacy testified that when she made that clear to Brescia, he was devastated. Ed was hurt too. And on January 12th, she had dinner with Ed to apologize. It was the night before the murder.
And after you saw Edward Schiller in the parking lot that evening, did you ever see him alive again?
No.
Prosecutors had talked about motive. Now it was time to establish a money trail. On October 14th, 2005, Jim Brescia cashed a $4,000 IRS refund check at his mother's bank. Prosecutors said it was a down payment to the hitman, Scott Foxworth. The next day, Foxworth's bank account showed some unusual activity.
Scott Foxworth deposited $1,000 cash into this account.
Immediately prior to Mr. Foxworth's deposit, what was the balance of that account?
$8.50.
The next witness would be Stella Brescia.
Prosecutors wanted Brescia's 87-year-old mother, Stella, who went to the bank that day with her son, to testify about what happened to the $4,000 IRS refund. She arrived in court wanting to help Jim Brescia. Her testimony may have done just the opposite.
What did he do with the $4,000?
He gave it to me and he put it in an envelope marked IRS.
Tell the members of the jury, please, where that money in the envelope was put.
I put the envelope in a strong box that I have.
She says the cash never left the strong box, and that was October 2005, 3 months before the murder.
And what's inside the envelope?
$4,000.
If that was true, Brescia couldn't have used it to pay Foxworth. Prosecutors quickly asked for a recess. Duke Donahue checked the 40 $100 bills. Checking the date the bills were printed, Donahue saw they were all printed prior to 2005, the year the check was cashed, except for one of them.
One of the bills was signed by a man who had not been yet appointed Secretary of the Treasury as of the time that she said she put it in the box.
That crisp 100 was issued in 2006, 1 year after Stella says she put the money in the strong box. Was she lying? Or had her son used some of the money without telling her? Either way, it was a disaster for Brescia. Jurors would now hear from the state's star witness, Nancy Campbell. Prosecutors say Nancy Campbell was the one who put Brescia and Foxworth together. Did she know she was helping to set up a hit? Could she have saved Ed Schiller's life by calling police? Whatever her responsibility might have been, she would pay no legal price for it. Nancy Campbell testified for the prosecution under full immunity. Nancy Campbell, Ed Schiller's blood's not on her hands?
You could make that case, that the phone call could have or should have been made.
Why would this divorced mother of two risk it all to be a go-between for a jilted husband and an ex-con? In court, she said she wanted nothing to do with it when Brescia first approached her.
He said that he wanted me to call Scott, and I said that I wouldn't. If he wanted to talk to him, he could have his number.
Prosecutors gave the jury evidence of more than 60 phone calls from payphones between Brescia and Foxworth. On at least 2 occasions, Campbell said she saw Brescia call Foxworth from a payphone.
I asked why he was calling on the payphone, and he said it couldn't be traced, and he just said he wanted Scott to beat up somebody. I assumed it was Ed.
Campbell said Brescia and Foxworth together tracked down where Ed lived and worked, and the plan changed from roughing up Ed to something more sinister.
A beating wasn't enough. They could point the finger back at him, and if he was dead, then they couldn't.
On Friday, January 13th, Campbell's phone rang. It was Jim Brescia.
He just said that something bad happened, and I said, what do you mean? He just kept saying something bad happened.
Shortly after came a bizarre call from Scott Foxworth.
Yes. And he said to me, well, I hope he didn't hire someone else to take care of Ed. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, you know how he's been talking to me, but I keep telling him I'm not doing that.
Foxworth and Brescia were pointing fingers at each other. Or maybe they were trying to confuse the one person who knew of their plot. After 2 weeks of testimony from 69 witnesses and more than 200 exhibits, this circumstantial case seemed to have some teeth in it.
Your Honor, with that, the Commonwealth rests.
But Jim Brescia was about to bite back.
Your Honor, I call James Brescia to the stand.
Brescia, please step forward, sir.
Coming up, Jim Brescia takes the stand and describes how he confronted the hitman after he found out that Ed Schiller was dead.
I said, I didn't ask you to kill anybody. He told me if I didn't pay the money that the same thing had ended up happening to me.
Was this defendant really a victim? When Dateline continues.